everybody. How are you guys? Yeah? You're good? You're good. Okay, good. I hate being the storyteller who's like, I didn't know what the theme was. Except I came up with this story and I was like, yeah, that's the story I'm going to do. And then I saw that the theme was travel. And I was like, well, shit. Because this story doesn't like really have anything to do with travel, but it has to do with home. And that's actually a good jumping off point because for me, I go home like far too often. I'm not from here, I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Boston, and I go back there like whenever I have like a little bit of extra money or time. I'm like, oh, let me fly home. And as a result, like 90% of my travel ends up being like that. So I was recently yelled at by my boyfriend for only going home. So I'm just gonna start there. So as I was mentioning, I'm from Boston, and it's weird that like I go home so often because I should not embrace my past so much. I was a very weird kid. When I was a little kid, I was obsessed with unsolved mysteries. You guys have seen Unsolved Mysteries, right? Who here has not seen that? I see like 2 hands. Insignificant. Like 6, 7 years old, my grandmother lived with us. She was in her 80s when I was born. That's very old. Like there's no way she'd be alive today. But anyway, so I would go down to her little apartment, which was attached to our house, and watch Unsolved Mysteries. And I was like 7 years old, so excited whenever the intro would start. And you guys know the intro, right? It's like, this program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast. And the thing would go like, shh. And I would like shit my pants. Like, so like anxious, like loved it, loved the murder, loved like, and like my parents were never like, this is weird, you know, like this is a bizarre thing. My sister Pam, who's 12 years older than me, and was like anxiously away, like she was the youngest kid until I came along. And then when I was born, she was like, well, like here's something that I can treat like shit. It was like she was delighted just to do shit to me. When I was 4, she took Thanksgiving. She takes horseradish and she's like, "Hey, smell this." And so like I smelled it and she's like, "No, closer to your nose," because that's how she talks. Closer to your nose. And I was like, okay, so I like sniffed the horseradish and it went up my nose, had to go to the emergency room, happy Thanksgiving. I don't like Thanksgiving. Like I don't like it, I never have, I never can, and it's because of that bitch. So of course, like me being weird was just like icing on the cake for her. Because she was like the cool girl who like definitely didn't go to college because it was like the 80s and that's not what you did. So I remember at one point because she would like watch me when my parents went to work, and because I was like in a very large family, my parents very much had the attitude of like at some point being like, "Oh, you're still here?" Like, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm in 3rd grade. Like, I'm not going anywhere yet. Please pay attention to me." So like Pam would babysit me. And I remember telling my grandmother during like our Unsolved Mysteries chats, like in between like a story about like a rape taking place in Wisconsin and like Alcatraz, like, you know, I would be like, "Oh, so Pam, when she watches me, it's so funny that we're learning about sharing in school because she and her friends share their cigarettes. Like they just smoke a little bit and then they give it to the next friend." And she's like, "Oh my God." So anyway, so Pam, I was like, "Yeah, I love Unsolved Mysteries so much." And she was like, "Yeah, it's so weird that you like that, probably because our house is haunted." And I was like, fucking kidding me? I'm haunted. All this time, I've been like obsessed with ghost stories, and it's around me. It's happening everywhere, and I have no idea. I would watch Unsolved Mysteries, and my grandmother had this couch in her bedroom, so I'd like sleep on the couch because I was scared of composite drawings. Nothing else. Just the police composite drawings. And of course, like, being a kid who's like slightly obsessed with like a journalism style show, I thought maybe it's time for me to start asking questions. So I went around to all the members of my family and I was like, what have you seen? What have you heard? What's going on? And my dad, like, I got some creepy stories. My dad was an architect and he would work on stuff late at night in the kitchen, and he would like hunch over the counter and like he'd be working on plans back when plans were things that you would do on paper. It wasn't like on a computer. And one night he turned around and he saw like a green figure, and he just like walked out to like see what was going on with the green figure, and the green figure just like went down the hallway and was slowly like going into the floor, and then turned to smoke and evaporated and went under a door, which was his bedroom. So like, that's weird, you know? By the way, who's afraid something's gonna come out of this door? Because like, I have been all night. So anyway, I asked him, you know, like, you seen anything else? He's like, go talk to your mother. My mother was just like, oh yeah, for years I've been finding blue marbles everywhere. And I was like, what? Blue marbles? That's weird. She's like, yeah, I would go into the kitchen and take something out of a cabinet and a blue marble would come out. I'd vacuum behind the couch and I'd find a blue marble. I'd be cleaning and I realize like this is a very misogynistic painting of my mother right now. I'm like, she was cleaning, she was in the kitchen, that's where she was the whole time. But this is Nixon's America, and then Reagan's America, and then I picture like during the Jimmy Carter years that my mom was like, like with them just went back to domesticity. Anyway, so anytime she'd like clean or explore the house, she'd find a blue marble. So eventually she thought, I'm going to collect the marbles. I'm going to start keeping a collection. So she put them in a jar, and eventually the jar was this big.
Damn.
I know, full of marbles. I asked my grandmother, what have you seen and what have you heard? And she was like, one night I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw a little boy, and I said, what do you want? And he pointed at the couch. You guys, I was sleeping on the couch. Remember? Unsolved Mysteries, I would sleep on the couch. The ghost wanted me. Clearly didn't get me. I'm 32, I live in California, I'm fine, you know? So far. So, years go by, the house is haunted, weird shit goes on, I move out, my parents die, my sister moves into the house, and she's like, maybe someday you'll come and visit. I was like, never coming back. This house is very creepy. And of course, I end up like getting a job in New York City. I moved to New York. My boss is very into the occult because like we all find each other, you know? Like anybody who's like sensitive to spirits, like we all find each other. And so she had a psychic that she used. Her name was Diana. And Diana looked like Diana Ross. And this is important because, as you all know, Diana Ross during the mahogany years had very big hair. And she continues to have very big curly hair. This woman, Diana, also has very big curly hair. So we're doing a reading, and she's going through things, and whenever she like gets messages from a spirit, she goes like this. She's like, and her hair shakes, and she's like, so she'd be like, I'm getting the name Michael. I'm like, I don't know any Michaels. She's like, moving on. Like, you know, like, it's all fake. She's like, I think I And then she goes, blue marbles. And I was like, shut up. Yes, blue marbles, what about them? And she's like, I don't know. And then that was it. That was like it. That was it. She just said blue marbles. And I was like, this is blowing my goddamn mind. Since my parents died, my mom gave the jar of marbles to my brother. So I called my brother. It was a windy day, and I'm like walking out on the streets of New York, and I'm like, Matthew, like, you know, because it's like windy, so he can barely hear me. He's like, what? And I'm like, the marbles. Where are the marbles? And he was like, I don't know, I lost them. So, like, that's where the story ends. You know, like, there's nothing else really. Just that, like, you know, what's home, really? But a jar of marbles that your stoner brother loses that are haunted. So maybe the ghost will get him. Thank you, guys.